Documents prove a shady attack campaign was launched against Maxime Bernier prior to the election. I'm Marco Perri. Welcome to the Perri platform. Very interesting news is beginning to surface from our recent election, and no party wants to own up to it. The CBC received exclusive recordings detailing political attack strategies used against Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party, prior to the election. It involves a guy named Warren Kinsella. He is a political strategist who owns his own company. You could consider it a consulting firm, and politicians go to him to get things done. He's at the center of all this drama because he crafted a very shady, very sinister attack policy that was used to, you could say, tarnish the reputation of Bernier further than what he did to himself. The reason why it's blowing up is because people are finding it odd how an outside party is now being tasked with the responsibility of taking down political adversaries. Typically, the parties would own up to it and launch their own campaigns out in the open, but there's some shady business going on behind the scenes, and this is the first drop into the bucket right now, the first case that's coming to light about it. So, this strategist, Warren Kinsella, he told his staff this as they were crafting their attack campaign, and I quote, "Maxime Bernier is a racist and a white supremacist who would be easy to expose to the lead up to the federal election campaign." They called this operation Project Cactus. Sometimes I wonder where they get these names from. Project Cactus, Project Penelope. It's so random, but I feel like there's some type of covert meaning behind it. We'll probably find out later. So, Project Cactus, this next line here is the real issue and by far the most appalling. He says to his staff, as they're about to create this campaign, "I want the hatred you have for Maxime Bernier to wash over you as a purifying force. There's nobody in the country doing what we're going to do to Max Bernier." Hatred as a purifying force, eh? It's funny. That is exactly what makes the gears churn in terms of modern politics, and he's willing to exploit that finding to his benefit, to his company's benefit, and to the person who hired him. We're not sure which party did it, but we're going to touch that in a minute. So he's looking to take advantage of a dastardly trend that undermines democracy, and we should be looking to dismantle it, but he's out here with his buddies trying to enrage you, trying to tell his employees that, yeah, we don't really care about the facts here. Just use your hatred for this guy to motivate you to destroy him. We see it not just in terms of this company here, but that's the prevailing trend. People are not tolerant of each other. They will hear something about someone and immediately be enraged. It's an outrage culture that is stemming from this inside feeling of moral superiority. You don't like what someone's saying, you deem it's evil, and you're going to do whatever you can to smite them with your holy wrath. It's a purifying force, and that's to say that no matter what you do, it's justified. Because Maxime Bernier, he is a racist. He's a white supremacist. Even if you have to do things, the means will justify the ends because you're doing a service to Canada. Nobody else is doing this. What a crazy message to be delivering to your employees. How evil. But that's what's going on. This individual, Warren, is very educated and very intelligent, as we can see here. He understands that racist is probably the worst thing someone can call you in the political realm, and he's looking to capitalize off that. When you hear that somebody is a racist, it instantly makes the masses hate them. You will hate that person because we know how abhorrent that ideology really is. And here's the funny part. You don't really need much evidence either, because that comes secondary to that hatred. People let the hatred wash over them, as he's so eloquently put it, and it becomes a purifying force. It's no longer innocent until proven guilty. It's racist, and people are going to drop the hammer on you because of that. There is no patience, there is no tolerance, there is no need to seek out further evidence, and he's well aware of that. He knows that by crafting his campaign around the idea that Bernier is a racist, it will be a success, because that's what the masses respond to. Very intelligent, very sneaky, very shady, and dastardly, but that's what happens when we let things like political outrage and cancel culture take over our dominant ways of thinking. Political strategists like this lovely company over here know how to exploit you because you made it all too easy for them. They're going to play you like a fiddle. You may believe that you're woke, but it's not the case. They better understand these things and these phenomena. The companies are more than happy to turn the tides in whatever way the person paying them wants them to be turned, and they're going to stoke further resentment along the way, using exactly what they outline here: your anger your hatred as a purifying force. This really is the central theme of political polarization, and that's one of the biggest issues facing North America. People are not united in a joint effort to better the country. People hate each other because of the ways you think. They want to shut you down if you have a different ideology than them. It's not prosperous. It's not the best way to handle disagreements in a civilized society. Yet, we have companies like this and whoever hired him trying to stoke the flames of resentment. It's counterproductive. So, Warren continues to do exactly that, and he also demands this. He tells the staff he wants them to spill blood. There is nothing holding them back now, so you have your anger propelling you, and if you feel sorry for him, don't. Spill the blood. He deserves it. Do what you can. The problem is, when your objective in politics is not the truth, but instead to seek bloodshed, there is an incentive to apply a little bit of fake blood here and there. It's highly problematic and a disgrace to democracy. If your objective is to make someone look terrible, instead of trying to figure out the real scope of the issue, you're going to do things that will lead you to your desired objective. You might start trying to read too deep into things. You might exaggerate certain things. You might post crazy narratives that have nothing to do with reality. And I'm not saying that's what they did with Bernier, but that is a path that is common for those who go down that route. Your goal should really be trying to tell the public the truth. You can have your opinion about it, but if your purpose is to seek out bloodshed, you're doing it wrong. Another interesting here is the fact that Warren won't admit who he did this project for. He's had ties to the Liberals in the past, but sources state it was commissioned by the Conservatives. And if you think about it, it really makes sense from a what's there to gain perspective. The Liberals, they don't really have much to do or much to gain by undermining Bernier. It's not like that the People's Party is leaking out resources from the Liberals. If you're voting Liberal, it's unlikely you also share these same sentiments as Bernier. It's more likely you're in line with the Green Party or the NDP. But the Conservatives, that's a different story. They may have felt that Bernier is going to leech away support in a very closely contested race, and they can't afford it. So, we're going to have to destroy him to make sure nobody votes for him, because we need as many of those seats as we can get. I can see that being the case, and of course, nothing is confirmed, but I think it's very likely for that to happen. I just can't see the Liberals playing a part in this. There's not much for them to gain and a lot to lose. Prominent politicians have been asked about this, and they're all denying it, though. People from the Conservative Party have said, we don't know this guy. It was not part of our strategy. We're not too sure what he's talking about. And when pressed on this, Warren himself, he continues to say that, yeah, we're justified in doing that. We're not going to tell you who commissioned it, but Bernier is a racist and a white supremacist, and we did a great job in trying to expose that. Okay, as a reporter, if I was there, my next question would have been, what do you mean by that? Can you explain why exactly you think he is a racist or a white supremacist? It's not been made clear by anything that Warren's put out. His job is not to tell you the full story. His job is to destroy Bernier, and obviously he's taking shortcuts here and there. He keeps dropping the buzzwords racist, white supremacist, without actually citing where exactly that comes from. It seems like he's actually still caught up in his own plan, and he's using these basic social media types of rationale. Because I say something, it is. And if I have virtue on my side, or a purifying force, as he puts it, I can't be wrong. And if you challenge me, it means you are also racist. See, I wouldn't vote for Bernier for reasons that we will discuss later on, but when did facts become irrelevant in relation to accusations like that? I'm concerned with the principle here, and the fact that parties are hiring dogs, basically, to go after people with the intent of bloodshed and trying to tell employees that they are justified in whatever they do as long as they reach the desired outcome. So, let's look a little bit deeper into Warren's claim here. When asked, people would likely cite Bernier's immigration policy as the source of his racism and his white supremacy. His plan, so you know, is to reduce immigration to 150,000 people per year. When he first started campaigning, he wanted it to be 250,000, but he's reduced it since. So the current government, plans to admit 340,000 by 2020. Whether you agree or not with Bernier's policy, this is not a blatant example of racism. Now, maybe you can make the case that he is being xenophobic and he is displaying xenophobia-like tendencies, but simply discussing immigration and proposing it should be lowered should not be world-shattering for anybody. It's a debatable topic And for you to get offended by that and attribute racism to the very notion, it's not logically coherent. It seems like the prevailing ideology right now is that if you don't want immigration to trend towards infinity, it's a taboo thing for you to say anything. This is what Bernier talks about. One of the aspects that he brings up is that different types of immigrants bring different type of levels of value to Canada based on their skill set. That is true. You can support legal immigration, but it has to be precise. The fact is, nobody talks about the implications anymore because of how taboo the topic has become. There is positives and negatives here, like with most things. It's undeniable. There really are two opposing extremes, which are both equally foolish. There's full-on xenophobia on one side, and full-on open borders on the other. Importing 100 million people, for example, into Canada every year is likely a negative outcome. You can just think about how that would not be good for us or good for the immigrants either. Now on the other side, importing 0 people into Canada every year is also a negative outcome. Canada needs those people to sustain our population. We have a labor shortage. There are lots of benefits to bringing in skilled labor via immigration. The key is finding balance here. It's a balance between growth and sustainability. As I've laid out, there are two polar extremes which are equally idiotic to support. The real answer is somewhere in between, but the debate is where in between? Is it 300,000, 150,000, 200,000, 4 or 5? We're not talking about numbers like that. The topic will come up and it will be demonized and expelled immediately. That's not conducive to an issue as complicated as immigration. I'm not convinced that we have a definitive answer to this. I'm willing to hear the viewpoint of both sides, but suggesting a low figure versus a higher one, 350 versus 250 versus 150, that should not be destroying anyone's psyche. If it's backed up by reason and with projections and with logic, then it's fine. Let's hear it. The prevailing narrative is that the higher number equals inherently better, and that's not good enough because we need substance to that. Now, Bernier, I will say, does not provide much substance either, but in terms of what's going on here, it shouldn't trigger outrage. If we can't openly debate and propose contrary solutions, we will never improve. That's not how we achieve progress. And I also want to note here just the scope of what we're finding out. So keep in mind, Bernier, to put it bluntly, is a small fry. Imagine what they're going to be doing with real competition. If these parties are hiring shady outside contractors to run campaigns to tarnish the reputation of political figures, what are they doing to real competition? What do you think Scheer did against Trudeau? I want to find out how those brown-faced photos came out. How did they circulate so widely in such a short span of time? Also, in terms of Scheer, things were coming out about how 20 years ago or something, he was denouncing dual citizen members of parliament. Then it turns out that he also is. I would not be surprised to find out that we actually do have this underground network of people whose job it is to expose each other. All they're doing is trying to find dirt on you, and when they get that, maybe they're making it up too, who knows. Their job is to propel it to the populace to destroy you. As this guy said, he wanted bloodshed from his employees and he wanted them to do it with a sense of justice. Their anger and their hate propels them. That same motto, I would not be surprised if it was the prevailing train of thought for people who are in this field of work. Bernier is nothing. He did not need any help destroying himself, but people still hired each other to get it done. To ensure it happened, Bernier is a man who denies climate change. He had no shot at winning much in the government. Canadians are not on board with his ideology. It was also his first time running, and his party did not have any notable candidates in it. He lost himself to a conservative member of parliament. The projections for Bernier were terrible also from the get-go and throughout. There was not a point in this election where anyone should have been fearing the People's Party of Canada. It was just not a thing, but still, they went to these lengths to take him down. I can only wonder what they're doing against the big dogs, Trudeau and Scheer and Jagmeet. It just does not add up. And the overarching theme here is where the world of politics is heading. We have attacks versus debate, exaggeration versus the truth. You could have killed Bernier in many other more truthful ways, but instead they took the path of the racist white supremacist instead of a more realistic take, which is Bernier is delusional, he is a climate denier, and he is appealing to more separatist notions, and that's what he's about. he is a protectionist type policy person. You could have easily taken him out of the race by just speaking the truth, by debating him openly as they did at some of the leader debates. Bernier did not do that well because when he came face to face with it, people were coming at him. They were talking to him based on things that he said. You don't have to hire shady outside firms whose job it is to take him down. That is contrary to a democracy, to a civilized society, and to a republic. It's shameful. And speaking of shame, that brings me to the conclusion here. Politicians are finding a way to weaponize shame. They're using it as a tool to take each other out. And by doing that, you will create an environment where only the shameless can succeed. This is not something I think anyone wants, but we are people who are actively trying to bring it about. And the only reason why this strategy even works in the first place is because the masses buy into it. People might think they're woke, but these politicians know far more than you. These strategists understand the trends, and they're going to use it against you. The real way out of this is through critical thinking and not being a sheep. You have to think for yourself and try to understand what's going on here. Otherwise, you're at the whims of people like this guy right here who is going to tell his staff to enrage you, and you're going to fall for it. Living in a democracy is an amazing thing, but it comes with certain core responsibilities, and one of those is to educate yourself. Another is to respect things like debate and freedom of speech. You cannot be losing your mind and having a meltdown when somebody with a contrary point of view comes at you. The real answer is you're supposed to debate, talk it out, and exchange ideas in a way where the best one will rise to the surface. You slay bad ideas by talking about it. If you shut it down, and let's say Bernier actually was a racist, if we're just going to shut him down, that's not doing anything to change his mind or change the mind of his followers. By openly facing his ideas in combat in a public forum, that's how you get things done. Instead, it seems like the easy way out is to just shut things down, censor things, and ban things. That's babying people. That's not where we should be trying to head. Instead of trying to put up a monstrous wall around you from the ideas you don't like, strengthen yourself so you can take them on, and maybe you'll have the opportunity to convert some people to your side. At the end of the day, I do worry for where politics is heading, because things like this shady firm here, I feel is not the beginning of it nor the end. We'll find out more as time goes on, and hopefully it's nothing too drastic. So, that brings me to the end of today's conversation. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a review and share. That'll help our channel grow. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Perri Platform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.